Now, you couldn't have written it this way. The American playwright Ayad Akhtar was awarded the Pulitzer Drama Prize for his play about Muslim identity and radical Islam in America on the very day of the Boston bombings. Disgraced has just opened at London's Bush Theatre and centres around a dinner party hosted by a New York lawyer. Amir Kapoor, a Pakistani-American, is about to land a big career promotion. But throughout the play, he wrestles with his own religion, having renounced Islam. Asked to represent an imam, it's something he can't quite bring himself to agree to.
You and Hussein wanted me to go see him, so I went. And the man spent an hour trying to get me to pray again.
The play culminates in a friendly dinner party, escalating into a conflicting world of Islamophobia, racism and sexism.
To stand up against what is wrong, to stand up for what is right.
Akhtar is no stranger to these subjects. He previously played a radicalized Pakistani Muslim terrorist in his own screenplay, The War Within. But with Disgraced, he says he wants to raise questions and reflect a daily clash Western Muslims come up against. I met Ayad Akhtar at the Bush Theatre, and he told me about the day he won the Pulitzer Prize.
The sort of tragic irony of it is that as I was getting the news and as the emails were flooding in almost immediately and the text messages and the calls, you know, the BBC News was on in the corner on mute, and it was showing the loop of the Boston bombings that had just happened. So it was odd because the play, in a way, emanates from and is a response to the world that was depicted in those clips, as it were, which is our world, of course.
There's a climactic scene in which Amir talks about the conflict of looking at 9/11, yeah. and saying in a way he felt proud that they'd pulled this off, that they were fighting back. Yeah. Can you explain that? I mean, and is that a feeling that do you think is actually felt by a lot of people?
I don't know if it's felt by a lot of people. It's certainly felt by Amir. And I think the thing that I'm working with the ways in which, in this play, I'm working with the ways in which tribal identity is difficult to get away from, irrespective of the level of one's education and the nature of one's acculturation or assimilation into a larger, let's say, majority population. There still can be, and even amongst the majority population, there is still often a deeper identification with a kind of racial or ethnic or religious fealty, which is part of what I think it means to be human, actually. And so being aware of that is very important if we're going to find ways to live peacefully and productively with each other.
Is it how you related to 9/11? I mean, revulsion and yet some sort of tribal association?
No, I had a very different response to 9/11. That's one of the interesting things about talking about the play, because when the question comes at me from the perspective of, is this you? In a way, if I respond in the affirmative, I take the potency out of the fiction itself by pointing it at some true thing that I'm talking about. But if I say it's not me, then I undermine the truth value of the fiction. To me, as an artist, the most important thing is to retain the multivalent emotional richness of that fictive experience that is standing in for a real experience. It's not important if Amir's sources ultimately are my own. What I have to do is convincingly portray a group of characters that the audience can understand as being true.
But when you then, if you take all of this and then you look at what happened with Boston, because in a way these two stories have become now interlinked, are you able to understand a little bit of these two brothers who are accused of that crime, of how they could have grown up in America and apparently accepted so many of the benefits of growing up in America and then turned on the culture?
Well, I will say is that a lot of folks have come out of the play. Even last night at first preview, there were a couple of people who came up to me and said, you know, we've seen a lot of plays that purport to sort of put us in the perspective of that young Muslim kid that we don't understand living in the West. And this is the first time I've had an experience of that door being opened for me. So it's not a direct answer to your question, but I think it's an appropriate answer considering that I'm an artist.
Well, where you're staging this here is a very interesting place as well, in that it's a relatively unknown theatre nationally, or even in London, to be honest, but you're right in the middle of a very mixed Muslim community. I don't know whether you've been out there and
Oh yeah, I've
and looked at
spent
the
a lot
shops and what's out there.
spent
and
a lot
all
of
this
time
stuff.
here. Yeah,
Are you expecting people to come in here? I mean,
I hope.
you'll get some lively rows, I imagine, in that bar.
At least they won't be drunken rows.
Well, good luck with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.